would not be present here today if one man had not seen the dream of helping mankind 10 years ago. That man is one and only Mr. Mohnish Pabrai, founder and chairman of Dakshana Foundation. Mohnish sir, we request you to say a few words.
Honorable Chief Guest, Padma Shri Professor Phatak, Colonel Sharma, all the faculty, invited guests, parents, alums, and Dakshana scholars. It's a pleasure and honor to be with all of you today. I should actually just at the outset mention that whenever I go to different JNVs, I get all kinds of different things that people want changed. Students are asking for different things, and I have to remind them that my role in JNV, in Dakshana actually, is that of a tourist. You know, I just show up as a tourist, just like I've shown up today. And basically what happens is Colonel Sharma and his team do all the work, and I get all the bows. So I've become good at taking the bows, but the credit goes somewhere else. So there's a great team, the faculty, all the partnerships we have with Navodaya. There's a lot of different players who've made this happen today, and it's actually quite remarkable for me to see where we are after 10 years. Originally, when I had thought about starting Dakshana, there was no presence in India. I really didn't know anyone who could help get this venture off the ground. And I wasn't planning to move here. And just a number of things fell into place. I was assuming that when we started Dakshana, that for the first 10 years, it would just be learning, not much accomplishment, and through that learning, we would get better, and maybe in about 10 years, we'd start actually making a difference. But as it turned out, Dakshana started making a difference almost a few weeks after it got going. So it was just terrific to see the way the project took off. And quite frankly, I didn't have that much to do with it. You know, there's just a lot of people who have played a role in making it happen. But what we did do is we followed some principles, and the principles we followed 10 years ago, today, and maybe even 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, those aren't going to change. And those are important principles. So, you know, I've spent all my career as an entrepreneur, business person, investor, and so on. And when we make investments, when I look to make investments, what I try to do, and what all good investors try to do, is get the highest possible return with the lowest possible risk. So value investors, as what taught by Warren Buffett, is trying to go high return with low risk. And when we try to do charitable work or philanthropic activities, that formula doesn't work. And that the formula needs to change. And so the formula for making a charity or a philanthropic organization successful is to go high risk, high return, not low risk, high return. You have to, in baseball terms, swing for the fences, or in cricket terms, just go for sixers. And so you need to be like MSD at the bat. Just go for sixers. And it is okay if you miss, and it is okay even if your wicket is gone, because it is only the sixers that can change the world. So making a difference in the world is not easy. The world is the way it is because of a number of factors. So if you want to change the trajectory of mankind, that's not an easy undertaking. And so if you want to have a chance at making that change, you have to be willing to go high risk, high return. So for example, the Gates Foundation, they spend a lot of money trying to develop vaccines for a variety of different diseases. Vaccines are notoriously hard to develop. They're not easy. But once you develop them, the impact is massive. So, we used to have, just a few decades ago, serious problems with polio, almost non-existent. In India, polio doesn't exist at all. Almost all over the world, it doesn't exist. I think Pakistan, we have a few remnant cases. But that's an example of what the power of vaccines is. And so the Gates Foundation is trying to do that in a number of different areas. And that is kind of the definition of going high risk, high return, because the payoffs are so high. And for Dakshana, we are in what I would call phase one of Dakshana, where we embarked on a particular model of, focusing on 16 to 19-year-olds who are from weaker sections of society, impoverished and so on, and trying to reset the economics and the conditions of the families they come from in a relatively short period of time. And that program has worked well. But that program that we're running right now is going to hit upper limits that we will not be able to cross. So there are finite upper limits to this program. There are finite number of seats at the IITs or the NIITs or the medical seats. So once Dakshana gets to, graduating 2,000 kids a year or 3,000 kids a year, maybe even up to 5,000 kids a year, we will start hitting those upper limits because there's just a finite number of seats. And we have to go to what I would call phase two. And phase two will be much harder than phase one because we're going to go after an even tougher problem. So the first problem that we tried to solve was relatively, I think, easy because we had precedent, we had Super 30, the pathways were known. As we try to go in the future, we're going to encounter programs and endeavors where the pathway is not known. We might be dealing with an age group which is like 5 to 10-year-olds, for example. And we'd have to deal with a much larger universe with more intractable problems. But those are all good things. I think the good thing with Dakshana is we're very willing to fail. We'll go for the sixer, and we're very willing to fail. The second thing I just wanted to say to the alums and to the scholars is some of you may have heard this story before, but hopefully some of you have not. And I hope you'll take some lessons from it. So there was a small village in Maharashtra that was producing the very best mangoes in the world. The mangoes from this village were really famous, and they were exported all over the world. They were sold at very high prices, and people loved these mangoes, specifically coming from this village. And the village was doing very well because of these great mangoes and the great prices they were getting. But the village had a tradition that the very best mangoes that they produced were given to the village children to enjoy. They were not sold. They were given to the children. And some people visited the village who had been buying their mangoes from overseas, and they discovered that the very best mangoes are not coming to them. So they told the villagers that, listen, we'll pay you even more money, but we want the best mangoes. So please don't give the children the best mangoes, send the best mangoes to us. And the villagers eventually agreed because the price was so attractive, and they started shipping the best mangoes to the highest bidder. And after a few years, the village no longer produced good mangoes. And if you have not heard the story before, why do you think the village stopped producing great mangoes? Maybe just raise your hand if you know the answer. We have a hand up. So go ahead, yeah. Now, we cannot hear you. You need to come here. Please come to the front. First, introduce yourself.
My name is Tarun Kumar Kach.
So, go ahead.
I think if the good mangoes were given to children, they would eat the mango and throw the seed of that mango in the village itself. And so the trees or plants of mangoes even grow there in the village. And the number of trees increase in the village.
Where are you from?
I'm from Chhattisgarh.
And what do your parents do?
My father is a farmer.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
So he knew the answer. Please stay here for a minute. He knew the answer because he's coming from a family of expert farmers. Are you a good farmer?
No, I know a little bit of it.
Are you going to be a better engineer?
Of course.
Okay. All right. So what he said. So what he said was that when the best mangoes went out of the village, the seed in the best mango also went out in the village. They ended up where I live in Irvine, California. And then after my daughter enjoyed the mango, she put the seed in the garbage. And that was the end of that seed. And nothing was happening after that. And that was such a sad end to that seed. And so in the Navodaya system, they take 40 to 80 kids every year from a whole district. Those kids represent really good mangoes. And then the very best mangoes out of those 40 to 80 kids are in front of me. The absolutely best mangoes are in front of me. Now, what is going to happen to those districts and those villages if the seed never goes back? What is going to happen, Tarun?
Sir, would you repeat your
Net the mic.
would you repeat your question?
So, Tarun, you are the best mango. What district are you from?
Bastar district,
In which state?
Chhattisgarh.
Yeah, so Bastar district, Chhattisgarh, does it have problems?
Yeah. It has problem like Naxalism and all.
So it has a lot of problems. Guess which is the best mango from his district? Tarun is the highest quality mango that has been produced. Highest quality mango that has been produced. Tarun, what are you going to study at IIT?
I'm gonna take the branch of mechanics, and I'm very passionate about cars and all.
So, are the cars going to be produced in Bastar district?
Well, I have not think about that.
Okay, so Tarun, just give it some thought that अगर सबसे अच्छा mango वापस नहीं गया in some way, shape or form, Bastar district का सुधार नहीं होने वाला है. So you don't need to go back to Bastar district because we want you to be very productive. But you cannot forget about Bastar district. Are you going to forget about Bastar district? Okay, so what are your plans for Bastar district?
I'll copy you, like you are doing here.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, please remember, there are very few great mangoes that are produced. And one thing I tell Dakshana scholars is do not follow hum do, hamare do. Because, if you're a farmer, you know that if you have good seed, you need to produce many, many crops with that seed. So it should at least be hum do, hamare darjan. Yeah, hamare do darjan. Even better, what I would recommend to you, now Colonel doesn't approve of this, he's not going to be happy when I say this, is what you have to do is you have to do exactly what happens in farming. Okay, so farming mein, what are you focused on? You want the best quality crop. Best quality crop means the Dakshana girls have to marry the Dakshana boys. Because we have to combine the seeds to make the best crop, and then after the marriage they have to have lots of kids. In fact, they need to be kid producing factory. Okay? And teach those kids well, and then tell those kids to have lot of kids. And बाकी सब के लिए, like in China, हम दो हमारा एक. Okay? So thank you very much.